4 days.
I'll tell you more about it. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the special planning board meeting for September 26, 2019. Adequate notice has been published in accordance with the Sunshine Laws. Notice was published on September 12, 2019 in the Star Ledger, which happens to be one of the official newspapers of the Township of Springfield, and posted in the Annex Building on September 13, 2019. Can we do a salute to the flag, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Law, can we please have a roll call?
Committeeman Richard Huber. Mr. David Barnett.
Here.
Mr. Andrew Schwartz.
Present.
Mr. Jerry Fernandez is absent. Ms. Sylviane Grzybowski.
Here.
Ms. Caroline Singer is absent. Mr. Scott Wishna is absent. Ms. Marissa Ruggiero.
Here.
Mr. Brian Brendel.
Here.
Vice Chair Sharon Kessel.
Here.
And Chairman Tiger.
Perfect. Yes, I'm here. Okay. Yes, I'm here. Now I sound like Rich, too. Okay, so thanks, everyone. Okay, so we have a couple resolutions. The first resolution is a waiver of site plan 2019B T-Mobile Northeast LLC 1 Cornell Parkway Block 145 Lot 18. This is a waiver of site plan for a cell phone tower. Everyone received the resolution in their package. Anyone have any questions, concerns?
No.
Can I entertain a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Can I have a roll call?
Mr. Huber.
Yes.
Mr. Barnett.
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz.
Yes.
Ms. Grzybowski.
Yes.
Ms. Ruggiero.
Yes.
Mr. Brendel.
Yes.
Chairman Tiger.
Yes.
Motion passed.
I'm going to go out of order real quick. The next one is for resolution for application 6-2019S. This is for Trichlor, 656 Morris Avenue, Block 502, Lot 7. This was for preliminary and final site plan for bulk variances and retail building. We also got this resolution. Did anyone have any questions, concerns, or any edits?
No.
No? Seeing none, can I entertain a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Second, Mr. Brendel. Ms. Law, can we have a roll call?
Mr. Barnett.
Yes.
Mr. Brendel.
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz.
Yes.
Ms. Grzybowski.
Yes.
Ms. Ruggiero.
Yes.
Chairman Tiger.
Yes. The next application, Mr. Schwartz was acting chairman for, so he will take the roll call.
Yes, I was acting chairman on application 7-2019S, Baltus Roll 201 Shunpike Road, Block 1605, Lot 1, for preliminary and final site plan, 2 variances for an irrigation pumping station. Everyone should have received a copy of the resolution. Any comments, questions, changes?
Nope.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
So moved.
Oh, sorry, good idea. Can we have a motion, please?
Second?
Who was here?
Yes.
Brian was here. Can you second?
Second.
Okay, great.
All right,
Okay.
now let's have a roll call.
Mr. Barnett.
Yes.
Mr. Brendel.
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz.
Yes.
Ms. Grzybowski.
Abstain, I wasn't here.
Oh, my bad. Motion passes.
Thank
I
you.
return the gavel.
Thank you very much. Okay, next thing is want to do some housekeeping. We have our November meeting date. One of our professionals has a conflict, and we need to change the date, so if everyone will get out their calendar. We're leaning towards November 12th at 7 p.m. in this room. Does anyone have any questions? That would be Tuesday. Veterans Day is Monday. We would be the Tuesday.
I don't have any conflict.
Conflicts?
November 12th.
No, I just want to make sure we have a quorum. I mean, if you can't be here, you can't be here. The date's changed. It is what it is.
For Tuesday the 12th,
Yes,
November?
yes.
I probably won't be here.
Okay.
First thing.
We didn't want you here anyway.
When do we have the
The governing body's the week later. You're okay.
3rd?
No, the governing body's the 19th. Checked with John.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
John, governing body we checked was the week later. Yeah.
We only have one meeting that month?
No, you have the 6th and the 19th. Okay, Rich, I'm sure you're good.
Wednesday.
Anyone else? Okay, so Ms. Law, I'm going to instruct you to you can wait to publish because we should wait to see what the other applicant, but if not, it'll be November 12th at 7 PM in this room. Well, before Mr. Disco and Mr. Keenan, you good with that? Good?
I always have conflicts on Tuesday nights, I will attend.
That will be the other redevelopments, so if you can. Okay, perfect. The next one is, we have an environmental update. From time to time, we like to kind of hear what's going on with our environmental commission still as our kind of representative liaison. So if you can maybe tell us 1 minute or so of what's going on. We will look to do a joint environmental commission board sometime in December, where we'll invite them to kind of give us an update, but if you can kind of let us know what they discussed and.
The discussion was the ash trees at Ruby Field. A resident came and really does not want the trees cut down. So the entire meeting was dedicated to everyone speaking on their opinion on what we should do. Should the town save them or cut them down? And they also, the other part of the meeting was to look for volunteers for November 3rd for a Clean Community Day, to clean up all the parks in town.
What was the resolution on the ash trees?
It was pending, they needed to speak to the town council, and they needed to speak to DPW on how much it would cost to medicate the trees, basically, because Milburn is trying to do that, and apparently it was $2,000 a tree.
And it's not guaranteed.
Right, so they had to speak with the administrator, the town council, and DPW on to see, but they really are fighting to save the trees. They do not want them cut.
Don't blame them. Okay. What day is Clean Community again?
November 3rd.
Jen will send it out when she reminds us.
It's on the website.
It's on the website. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. Is that
That was it.
good? Okay, so if you would go back to the Environmental Commission, let them know that you addressed us, and then invite them to come to our December meeting. Jen will give the date. I think it's an odd date because of the township does their holiday celebration outside.
Okay.
But invite them to come, Ally, and kind of address the board again.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, the next thing is application 8-2019S. This is Springfield 92 Milburn Ave Urban Renewal LLC. Could it be a longer name? 92 Milburn Avenue, blocks 101, lots 1, 34, 45, and 46. This is for preliminary and final site plan for a mixed-use residential development. So before we get started, I want to kind of just explain what, no, stay, I'm not that long-winded. So the way that we're going to, this is a very long application with a lot of experts. So the way that, for the public, so you can kind of understand how we're going to go run through this is, I'm going to let the applicant put their entire case up. Instead of having public come up after each witness, we're going to let them put their entire case up, and then at the end of the application, all the witnesses will be here. You'll have the same amount of time to be able to question their witnesses, address the board with comments and concerns, but we'll do it all at the end. This way you'll be able to hear all of your witnesses and be able to kind of see what each aspect is as opposed to at once. It'll hopefully get some of your questions out before it comes up. So go ahead, Counselor.
Okay. Is this good?
Yeah.
Gail Price from the firm of Price, Nice, Shulman and Darminio, on behalf of the applicant, Springfield 92 Milburn Avenue Urban Renewal LLC, which is a long name. The applicant is the contract purchaser of the subject property that's before you this evening, and has been also designated as the redeveloper for the subject property. The application comes before the board tonight by way of a preliminary and final site plan application. We are hopeful that you will agree with us as we have received initial reports from your professionals that this is an application that is 100% compliant with the redevelopment plan that has been adopted and that's dated April of this calendar year. To the extent that there have been some questions about a couple of waivers as to whether they're needed in the application, you'll hear testimony from our professional and civil engineer and our architect that will confirm that those waivers are not necessary, and thereby confirming the compliance that I just referenced. We have worked hard to ensure that the plan is compliant. I personally have been involved, as some of you may know, with this site since 2006. A lot younger. And I have certainly gone through the reason why Milburn was involved is because, as you know, there's a 20-foot strip of property that runs the length of the property along the frontage. And that 20-foot strip has a very long history that dates back to the 1950s that involves the county road widening maps, and that was addressed in different forums. This evening, we're only going to be naturally talking about the property that falls within the township of Springfield. So how we got here was naturally through the redevelopment process, both by the committee as well as this board, and then by working with your township professionals. The project itself is a mixed-use project. 95% of it is residential. It's a mix of townhouse units as well as multi-story apartments. It is a full rental project. There are 47 townhomes and 223 apartments in the building that fronts on Milburn Avenue. It brings with it a significant number of affordable units for which the township will get credit, 41 units to be specific, which I think is a significant contribution towards your fair share housing plan and your housing element. The mix will be compliant, in fact, a little bit more than compliant, because we're addressing an additional 3-bedroom unit, but the mix will be 8 1-bedroom units, 23 2-bedroom units, and 10 3-bedrooms. That's just on the affordable. I just wanted you to know that so that you knew right from the beginning that we were compliant on the affordable mix. We are fully compliant on parking. In fact, we're overparked. The townhomes each have their own garages, and then there's a parking structure that will be dedicated solely to the residents of the multi-story building. There will be no allocation to third persons or third parties outside of the residents in that building. There'll be no renting of spaces to other parties. You don't have to worry about people coming from afar and using the space. And you'll hear testimony on all of this. I just wanted to give you a brief overview about this. We've been very careful in terms of designing how the site will work. And as you know, the site also has a long driveway that goes out onto Morris. And Morris is a state highway, so we have DOT jurisdiction on that roadway, and we have the County of Essex jurisdiction on our Milburn Avenue. So we have 2 counties, 2 higher authorities, and then 2 municipalities. So it's like a law school question or a bar exam question in terms of how to deal with all of those. I think we finally have a great project and one that'll make Springfield very happy, and that we've done it the right way. The project, in addition to the residential uses, has a small amount of retail. As you know, retail is very difficult in today's day, but it does have a small amount of retail. The redevelopment plan says you can have up to 6,000 square feet. Right now, we're planning about 5,200. And that's streetscape retail. There can be up to 5 tenants. We don't have tenants yet. So once we have tenants, that information will be forthcoming. The signage at that time will also be forthcoming, and naturally, if there's any reason not to comply with the signage that is permitted, those tenants will have to come in. We're not anticipating any deviations, but naturally we would need to comply. There's also significant amenities provided. There's interior swimming pool, there's a fitness center, so that the entire site will operate as one residential development. Tonight we have, I have our civil engineer with me, we have our architect with me, and Scott Leventhal is with me as well, who can speak to any open operation questions or contract purchaser questions that Ben or Dave are not able to answer, or that you might have outside of their areas of expertise.
So we're going to do,
Ben's up first with civil engineering, and then we're going to go to Mr. Minnow with architecture.
architect, and then we'll talk about traffic. So for the board's etiquette understanding, the board hired a traffic expert on behalf of the applicant. So instead of using their engineer, traffic engineer, we're using ours on behalf of them. So he will testify as well for us.
And we've had an opportunity to review with our professionals the reports that have been issued by your professionals, so I think we should be able to answer any questions that arise with regard to those.
All right, let's get your first witness up.
So Ben, you're up first.
So while he's swearing him in, so we're just going to let them go, and then we'll ask questions instead of going all at once. We'll just go through the row.
Raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear affirm that the testimony before the board this evening will be the truth?
I do.
Can you state and spell your last name and provide your business address?
Yes, it is Ben Crowder. Last name is spelled C-R-O-W-D-E-R, and I'm with the firm Bowler Engineering, and our business address is 35 Technology Drive, Warren, New Jersey, 07059.
Thank you.
Ben, could you take a minute and go through your educational and professional qualifications for the board and the members of the public who are here?
Yes, I'm an associate with the firm Bowler Engineering, as indicated. We're headquartered in Warren, New Jersey. For a Bachelor's of Science degree in Civil Engineering from the University of Pittsburgh, over 10 years of engineering design experience, and I'm also a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York.
And you've been working on this project since its inception with the creation of the redevelopment plan, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you have you been accepted as an expert with regard to other planning board or zoning board hearings in the state of New Jersey?
I have.
And you heard everything that I said, which was not obviously sworn testimony, but just given as way of background. Was there anything that I misspoke in terms of an opening with regard to your presentation?
No, you conveyed it very accurately.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to ask you if you could, by way of narrative, take the members.
We have to accept it.
Oh, sorry.
So the
Sorry.
board have any concerns with accepting it? I think he's qualified.
Your licenses are still valid today?
Yes, that's correct.
I hope so. Anything?
No issue.
That
No
would be
issues.
a
I will
problem.
accept them.
Okay.
Where's the easiest place for me to present? I want to use a board. It'll also be up on the screen.
I think you could take the mic and walk around and
There's another mic.
You we'll take that off of there.
take it off of there and go ahead.
See.
It's not going to reach.
Had it all set up.
It's not karaoke, Jen.
That's why Jen gets to say money.
Too bad. Just watch the court.
Okay, so what I'd like to do for the record, mark this first exhibit A1. It is a plan titled Aerial Exhibit. It's been prepared by my office with today's date of September 26, 2019. Before I get into the proposed site improvements, I want to just quickly familiarize the board with the subject site for our application. So for the board's reference, top of this exhibit is to the north. Subject site for our applications delineated with a thick yellow dashed line. That's part of the redevelopment plan centered on this exhibit.
Mr. Carter, maybe you could turn it to the public and also see it?
Yeah, it's also on the TV. You know, we can turn the TV a little bit, can't we?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
No? Okay.
But
So just
you
turn the
exhibit just so.
turn the exhibit, yeah.
I don't know if any of the board can see it.
Good.
Because I think the board should see this.
We'll be okay. We have it in
Yeah.
front of us.
Okay. So with regard to the overall site, it's about 9.7 acres. As you heard from Attorney Price, the first 20-foot strip is actually located in the township of Milburn along the Milburn Avenue frontage. To the subject site to the north, the site has frontage along Milburn Avenue. As you also heard, that's under Essex County jurisdiction as County Route 527. Immediately beyond that are various retail commercial uses that lie within the township of Milburn. Kind of working in a clockwise direction from that point, one specific area I want to call attention to, and I'll talk a little bit more in the proposed condition, is that the northeast corner of the site is Van Winkle's Brook. That's an NJDEP regulated watercourse. Currently, as impacted by the current site conditions, you have asphalt parking areas from the prior use that encroach within that riparian corridor of that stream. So when I get into the proposed conditions, you'll see as one of our redevelopment goals is restoration to that riparian corridor, pulling back that impervious cover that's almost right to the top of those stream banks. Continuing around the site, particularly to the east and to the south, you have single-family residential uses that are part of your S60 zone. And as Attorney Price had indicated, the lot as a whole does have about a 50-foot wide strip that extends down to Morris Avenue, that being State Highway Route 124, which is under DOT jurisdiction. The intersection of Morris Avenue and Milburn Avenue is a signalized intersection. Certainly at that intersection, you also have some additional commercial uses, such as the wine library. Santander Bank is located along the western portion of our frontage. If we kind of focus in on the existing site a little bit more, I indicated it was 9.7 acres. Former home to the Saks Fifth Avenue department store. That building is located about 28 feet from the Milburn Avenue right-of-way. Factoring in the first 20 feet that are in Milburn, it's roughly 8 feet into the township of Springfield area. That structure itself is about 83,000 square feet. Rough height of that building, 20 feet, but as several board members may know, some of the central portions of that building actually extend a lot higher, gets all the way up to about 41 feet. One thing that the aerial accurately presents is the expansive impervious coverage on this site. So behind that existing building, expansive asphalt parking fields, in order of 84% of the overall site being impervious coverage. So as I get into the proposed conditions, you'll see as one of the improvements to the site is a significant reduction in impervious coverage on this site, added green space, added landscaping, added and amplified landscaping buffers to those residential properties to the south and to the east. Because under current conditions, some of those parking fields actually get as close as 1 to 2 feet from that shared property line to some of those rear residential uses. Anyone have any questions on existing conditions? Otherwise, I'm going to go right into some of the proposed improvements.
Go ahead. Mark, this is A2?
Yes. So I'll mark for the record A2. This is a site layout plan exhibit. It's also dated with today's date of September 26th, 2019. This plan sheet may look somewhat familiar. It's actually a colorized version of sheet 5 of 22 within our site plan document set. So it's colorized, and I've also overlaid the proposed landscaping improvements onto this plan so you kind of get a bird's eye view, two-dimensionally, of the build-out of the proposed redevelopment area. I also added a small inset, bottom left-hand corner of this exhibit, that continues to show the Morris Avenue connector road that extends out from the development as an access point. Very similar to the aerial, this is also for presentation purposes. Top of the exhibit will be to the north. I have taken a slight rotation from the aerial, but for purposes of describing the site, we'll say that to the top of the exhibit, or the Milburn Avenue frontage, is to the north. So as Attorney Price had indicated, our mixed-use development is comprised of 270 units. 223 of those units are located within a 4-story multifamily residential building. The balance of those units, or 47 townhouses, are located in townhouse clusters varying anywhere from 3 to 6 units at the northwestern portion of the site and along the southern and eastern portions of the development. As it relates to the overall positioning of these buildings, the access points, the setbacks, the required buffers, they are in full compliance with the redevelopment code with regard to design standards and ordinance criteria. Specifically, as it relates a little bit more to access to the site, and as the chairman had indicated, the township had its own consultant review the access points, conduct a traffic study along Milburn Avenue. we're proposing 2 access points from Milburn Avenue in the proposed condition. Our easternmost driveway, full movement, non-signalized, and our primary access point, which would be our western driveway, is a proposed full movement signalized intersection, certainly to be designed and under review by Essex County. Our approach to that traffic signal takes on a boulevard-style approach, where you have an ingress lane separated by a landscape divider with regard to the egress lane immediately opposite to that. The additional access point that is existing today, but also to be improved with our application, is continuing to provide that connector road out to Morris Avenue, which is under state jurisdiction. And one thing I'll note about that access point is it is reserved for residents only. So what we've implemented is a gate mechanism. So a resident with their key card or their key fob will be able to swipe it at one of the kiosks or the gate stations to allow access for residents only. So that's not intended to be any type of public cut-through. It's specific for the residents, and certainly reviewing some comments we received from the fire department, we can certainly work with that gate either through a radio frequency and access code that would allow emergency vehicles, fire trucks, responders to also use that access point if they had to get into that site. Specifically, a little bit more with regard to internal road networks. I talked about the western driveway and the eastern driveway. Tentatively, as it's named on our plans, Metropolitan Way can be described as kind of the primary road that works in a clockwise manner from the western access point to the eastern access point. From there, we have some various alleys that provide access to predominantly rear-loaded townhouse units that have 2-car garages. So those are a little bit smaller, residential feel, 20-foot in width, that provides access, as I stated, to those townhouse units both at the northwest and the southern and eastern portion of the development. You'll hear some additional testimony from our project architect, but as Attorney Price had also alluded to, a couple quick items with regard to the amenity space. One of the requirements in the redevelopment plan was to provide an amenity space that was 7,000 square foot minimum. At the northwestern corner of the building, that's where that space is located. It's about 7,056 square feet. And on the opposite end of the building, at the northeast corner, is where we're providing the required minimum of 5,000 square foot of retail. It's actually about 5,215 as shown on these plans. And you'll see here multiple access points and doors that have been designed if that space were to split up into multiple tenants. So whether it's one user or multiple tenants, what we wanted to show from a civil engineering perspective, that if demise walls were put in and based on how it was leased at a future date, you could provide multiple access points if they're for that ground floor retail. As it relates to parking, and that's why I briefly described the retail, based on our proposal of 270 units with the mix that you'll hear from our architect, as well as the 5,215 square foot residential area, we're required to have 390 parking spaces. As proposed in what you see in front of you this evening, 516 parking spaces. A lot of those will be provided in the associated parking garage, which you'll see some elevation shortly on from our architect. 320 spaces in that garage. And those spaces are specific to residents only. They are assigned spaces, and you hear some additional testimony that access into that garage will also be access controlled for regulating the in and out of those residential, or those residents, I should say. From there, each townhouse was also required to provide 2 spaces per unit. As I had indicated, each townhouse has the ability for a 2-car garage. Most of those units are rear-loaded in that condition. And then the balance of the parking provided around the west, south, and eastern portion of the development, 102 surface parking spaces. In close proximity to the retail component, which required a parking of 1 space per 300 square feet, or 18 spaces, we're providing 19 in that close proximity to that ground floor retail at that northeast corner of the building. As it relates to stormwater management for the subject site, so under existing conditions, I talked a lot about the impervious coverage, the 84% on the subject site. We are considered a major development as it relates to DEP and township stormwater criteria. However, predominantly as a function of reducing impervious coverage, we're able to satisfy those stormwater management regulations. So under existing conditions, the 84% actually gets reduced down to 71.3%. The redevelopment plan required a maximum of 75%. We're even further, we're 71.3%. What does that equate to? It's roughly 53,000 square feet of new green space, landscape, and plantings beyond the existing condition of the site today. So a lot of greenery. I'll get into landscape very shortly with some of those additional improvements, but a significant reduction in impervious coverage for the site. With regard to lighting, we did prepare a fully compliant LED lighting plan with our submission set. So when I say fully compliant, that adhered to several of the design standards within the redevelopment plan, as well as various underlying code sections of your ordinance. Of particular interest is the maximum mounting height of those LED fixtures, which was restricted at 18 feet. So along Metropolitan Way and in through some of these various surface parking areas, we're providing the post-top LED lights at that 18 feet. When you get into some of the other areas, particularly some of the small alleyways for the garage access to the townhouse units, those lights actually come down to more of a residential type feel. They're 12 feet in that area. Also, with regard to lighting, the redevelopment plan had a strict requirement. There was to be no light trespass to adjacent residential properties to the east and to the south of the development. Based on our design and our modeling, no light trespass is anticipated, and we're in full conformance with that stipulation for light trespass at residential property lines. As it relates to the landscaping improvements on the site, I talked about the added green space on the property. Also, under existing conditions, I talked at the northeast corner about Van Winkle's Brook, the impairment that that stream corridor had with the impervious coverage, prior parking fields of the existing use there today. So as the rendering suggests, we're actually pulling that asphalt back, restoring that riparian corridor. It does have some minor DEP permits that we're in the process of securing, but a great added benefit for restoring the integrity of that stream watercourse of the Van Winkle's Brook. In addition to that, and preparing a fully compliant landscaping plan, additional street trees and streetscape improvements are provided along that strip of land along the Milburn Avenue frontage. Street trees at 50 feet on center maximum. Additional shade trees are located within the parking fields throughout the balance of the site. And another redevelopment plan criteria, as you'll see on the southern end of this site, a triangular type area. We're required to provide a 12,000 square foot minimum central green. So you'll see that there as another open amenity to residents of this community as an area of enjoyment, open lawn space. We've also included some sidewalks, benches, trash receptacles, so that can be enjoyed. All in all, when you look at the landscaping plan as a whole, it introduces over 3,451 new plantings to this site, and that includes over 501 new trees into this development, a lot of which are being provided as part of the minimum required landscaping buffer to the residential uses to the east and to the south. I talked about existing conditions where that impervious coverage was as close as 1 to 2 feet in several areas. We're pulling that back to provide a minimum of 20 feet of dense evergreen plantings, supplemented also with a fence. In reviewing some of the reports from your professionals, there was some discussion on the type of fence, the height of the fence. At this point, I think in agreement with some of those recommendations, we want to go with a 6-foot-high fence that is vinyl in nature, just due to longevity of that fence, and having it a color that is compatible with the plantings in the landscape area, so not a bright sign that would, or fence that would stick out adjacent to those planted areas. With regard to signage, you heard Attorney Price talk about it a little bit. Certainly the sign package that we're providing with this development, fully compliant with the redevelopment plan with regard to sign area. We are proposing one monument sign located at our primary access point from Milburn Avenue. That sign will not exceed 40 square feet, which is in line with the redevelopment plan. And as you get into the site, we're also providing an entry gateway sign at both access points that provides further directory information, those signs not to exceed 10 square feet. And certainly throughout various other intersections, once you get internal to the site, some additional wayfinding signs to orient you to a specific building address or townhouse unit address at those critical intersections. And the last thing I kind of wanted to quickly talk about, and certainly we can supplement if needed from an operational perspective, is some of the loading operations, trash, those elements. So from a loading perspective, and I'll kind of start with the multifamily building, we've designated a 12-foot wide alley in this area that will serve as a move-in, move-out corridor for residents. It'll be coordinated with lease management on scheduling those times that a potential resident moving into their unit or moving out of their unit can utilize this space. As it relates to trash collection, recycling collection, I'll kind of split the development into three components: the retail, the townhouses, and the multifamily. Townhouses, from a trash and recycling perspective, the lease management office will provide each townhouse with 1 to 2 receptacles for trash and recycling that are required to be kept within their garage, wheeled out or rolled out at the day of those collection times. Certainly anticipated that it will be a private hauler that collects those on an anticipated frequency within the development. Multifamily, it's a little, what's the right word? There's a process to it. So if you're on one of the upper floors, there's internal trash chutes that lead the trash and recycling materials down to a common refuse area. That area, some of the larger containers actually get rolled out. We'll utilize the 12-foot wide alley for the garbage and recycling collection in those areas at those also preset times. Really, the last component is the retail, the 5,215 square foot retail. So we have provided a 10-foot by 20-foot wide trash enclosure to handle that waste generated from those retail users or single user. And we've also designated a 12 by 50 loading space for the anticipated box truck deliveries that may be servicing those retail uses. And we did provide those box truck templates as part of our site plan to show that those trucks can adequately maneuver through the site. In addition to, we got the specifications for Springfield Township's fire truck, its pump truck, and its ladder truck. And we were able to build that truck into our software and run those templates through the development to ensure that they could access each different component of the property. While I'm on the trash loading operation, one comment as I'm trying to go through some of the professional comments was with regard to the material of that trash enclosure. So on 3 sides it is concrete block. Our detail did indicate a chain link fence type swinging gate. Per the redevelopment plan, it needs to be a slotted and or solid gated material. We're agreeing to change that over, certainly due to its visibility at that area. We want to make something a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, durable, and comparable to the building that's right next door. And that really was a lot of my direct.
That's a lot of your direct. Let me ask you just a couple of questions. On your last statement, that eliminates the potential for a waiver, correct, by changing the chain length material?
That's correct.
Okay. With regard to outside agency approvals for this development, you referenced a few. I just want to confirm, because a couple of them have been submitted already. It's my understanding that Union County approval is necessary together with Soil Conservation, DEP, and perhaps DOT. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we have to get an E&S approval from Somerset Union County. They actually coordinated with Hudson Essex Passaic Soil Conservation District, and they decided that Somerset Union would review the soil erosion sediment control plan for the subject site, even though you have split county here. We also, more or less as formality, permits for improving the Van Winkles Brook. We have to secure an NJDEP FHA verification and IP for removing that footprint of disturbance within that riparian corridor.
We'll just condition, if the board acts favorably, it'll be just
That's
condition on all
Sure.
outside agencies.
Correct.
Because you'll need a safe drinking water, you'll need to work with our new ordinance for Raritan Valley Sewage Authority, all that stuff too, so we'll work with the engineer. So do you have anything further? Because I want our engineers to talk before the board opens up. No? Mr. Disco, do you want to kind of, you just have some comments there, some of which were addressed, but if you want to kind of take the board through and ask them questions before we open it up, because you may be able to resolve.
Or you were waiting for all of them to get done and then go back.
No, we're going to our professionals, then coming back.
You changed it.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Disco.
And I'm going to skip what I think the architect will get. Your attorney, Ms. Price, addressed comment number 1. Comment number 2, the heights of the trees adjacent to the garage lower level for screening purposes.
Yes, approximately 10 to 12 feet at install for those trees.
I would defer to next to comment number 5 in terms of any traffic calming measures on lot 34. If you want to discuss what you already have with that regard.
Yeah, no additional measures are proposed. I had indicated that the access from Morris Avenue restricted to residents only through a gated access point that is key swiped, key coded on either end for residents only. As you ingress into the site in a northerly direction, there's a small S-curve, which I believe will also serve as a traffic calming measure as you further enter into the primary intersection coming in off of the Milburn Avenue signal.
The reason I bring that up is the redevelopment plan allows the planning board to consider traffic calming measures on that driveway. I do not recommend that there are any more at this time. I'll wait on comment 6. 7. Is comment 8 probably more geared to the architect?
That's correct.
Okay. And comment 9 would be the architect. I think you covered most of number 10.
I'll ask you one question.
Sure.
Just make sure that this meets, you reviewed the landscaping plan, or the definition we put the word significant landscaping. Does this to buffer the residents?
One question I had on that
Yeah.
was the height of the tree species in that 20-foot buffer, which I'm asking.
Okay, go ahead.
And those trees will vary, but generally 6 to 8 feet at install through that 20-foot screen.
So you have a 6-foot tall fence, and at installation, a 6 to 8 foot on, I believe, 3 of the 4 evergreen species?
Correct.
And then the 4th evergreen species was, I think, 8 to 10?
Yeah, 8 to 10.
So you're going to have 6 to 10 foot tall evergreens at installation, which, if I could ask, what is the average growth rate of those species?
So I asked our landscape architects, and they said to anticipate growth of about 1 to 2 feet per year per tree.
Right. So I think that's a pretty significant buffer. It's fully evergreen along the southeast, southern, and southwest borders, and the western border against all residential.
Okay. Continue.
I agree with the comments of number 11, and I assume that that was also modeled without the benefit of landscape.
That's correct.
He's addressed number 13.
We don't have enough.
There's a minor comment, number 15. Are those elements going to be highly visible at the northeast corner of the site?
Yeah, so those are hot boxes that are above grade. We kind of have our hands tied with New Jersey American Water's requirements for installation of hot boxes. That structure would be anticipated to be about 6 to 7 feet in height. What's important for us is making sure that that structure is outside of the site triangle at that intersection, and we have supplemented with some additional plantings, but per the utility provider requirements, we are required to put that within a certain distance from the main that's located in Milburn Avenue.
That's what I was going to see, if you could move that back, or is that the maximum depth back that you can?
If we have the opportunity to, we could certainly potentially move it to the other side or to the southern end of that 12 by 50 loading area, subject to New Jersey American Water's approval. We've had some success in asking for a slightly longer distance.
Okay, 16 just piggybacked some of the fire comments. In general, you saw the fire department's review letter?
I did, yes.
There was probably about 10 things on that. Did you have an issue with any of those?
We did not, and particularly as you reference here for 16 with the mountable islands, we're agreeable to that with the granite block that's mountable at a 45 degree.
17 was really a request, more of a practicality issue in that there will be some time for this project to occur. I don't want to presume what it is, but I would assume at least 12 months, if not more. So there may be a possibility to put the landscaping in early on.
Yeah, so I think the board would defer to you to come up with the right thing based upon that,
So
with the timing of construction.
It's
Would
an
you-
acquiescence question, really, if
So-
you're not opposed to that.
Yeah, as long as it was sequenced with some of the earlier site clearing demolition activities where we got into that area, we're done with demolition, certainly that could be
Yeah.
sequenced in with that work.
And that's meant to protect the residents, to give them some buffering during the time period,
Additional buffering while construction occurs, yes.
sooner than later. Okay.
And it would also allow for the benefit of that additional time period to grow even taller.
Your comment about Baltusrol Avenue, we're going to defer to our traffic expert to address with us.
19 goes by the wayside, 20 you've addressed, 21 you addressed in testimony. There are sanitary sewer comments that I don't know if you will wish to discuss them now or later. Or-
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the items with regard to utilities on the site is some board members may be familiar that there's an 8-inch sanitary sewer main that bisects the site from a west to east direction. As part of our improvements, working around the future parking areas, drive aisles, building placement locations, we are slightly relocating that area and associated easement to the Township of Springfield for that sanitary sewer improvement. Certainly with our development, there will be an increase in flow, factoring in also that there is some credit that comes back with the existing building that's there. Certainly we've agreed, as in review of this comment, that there are some I&I issues within the township sewer system, so we will be doing or can coordinate a small inspection of a certain section of pipe that may be contributing to those problems. And certainly working back from there, working either a contribution or a improvement that's prorated on the added flow from the sanitary sewer generated by this redevelopment.
Okay, I had 3 comments regarding sanitary sewers. The project, as indicated by the applicant, is a benefit from a stormwater perspective, meaning people downstream are going to get less rainfall. From a sanitary sewer perspective, though, from a vacant property and from a previously developed retail property, we're going to have more sanitary flow.
Makes sense.
So there are 3 components of that we have to address. Number 1, does the receiving sewer have capacity? I believe it does. I've asked for Bowler Engineering to provide a capacity analysis. I believe you consent to do that.
Correct.
The second issue is that Public Works has identified that where the sanitary sewage from this site goes to the south and southeast, there is a area of impeded maintenance problems on Denham Road. So we want to protect against exacerbating that situation. So what we've asked for is for some agreement to have them investigate that area, to inspect that area, to see if there are identifiable problems with the area that can be corrected. And third, that the site is going to generate approximately 56,000 gallons per day, less a potential credit of what the previous uses had contributed. This is over and above what our existing overall sanitary sewer system is taking down. Springfield has a problem in the sense that our flow rights, which is what we are permitted to discharge to Rahway Valley Sewerage Authority, who treats our waste, we exceed our permitted flow rates. We are not under a sewer ban, but as of July of this year, for instance, we have 91 occurrences where we have exceeded our flow rates. That's important to understand because it is possible that Rahway Valley can fine us up to $5,000 a day. They have elected not to do that. we are not the only municipality in this position, and Broadway Valley has not fined any municipality in well over a decade, as long as you are proactive in trying to address the problem, which Springfield has repeatedly shown they are interested in solving that problem. But the reality is that as you add a significant amount of sanitary sewer flow, the issues that we have are not going to get better. So we've asked for some assistance or mitigation towards this. It's the equivalent of if you had additional rainwater, you would mitigate it, control it on site, and not make it worse downstream.
So then the idea is they'll have to come up with a plan with you to solve this. I know that the governing body's working on an ordinance to be able to handle this issue, and any ordinance that they'll have to comply with based upon it's a function of building permit or something when they go to obtain a building permit to handle the sewage thing. We'll leave that to, I would believe the board would agree with me, we'll leave that to you guys to make sure that it's done in a safe manner that doesn't impact the other residents of the township, and that we come up with a plan to minimize the impact to the governing, to the overall township residents.
Understood. I wanted to convey that I did speak with the applicant's engineer several times about this. I feel that they are in agreement that they would meet the intent of this. The specifics obviously remain somewhat in the air what that financial commitment is. As long as the board is comfortable, I hope I've explained the situation adequately.
And that was perfect, and it'll be a function of a developer's agreement that if we act favorably, the developer do. But they're required to do a TWA anyway, right? Treatment Works Act?
They are.
So a lot of that will get mitigated in that before we sign the application.
Maybe you want to explain from the public
Yeah.
what a TWA is?
Treatment Works app, do you want to explain to the governing body?
Well,
To the
since
residents?
the flow is eventually getting discharged to the Broadway Valley Sewage Authority treatment plant, as well as whether this, I don't believe they're going to consider this a main extension DEP, correct?
They will.
They will.
For this, correct.
So there's two aspects that they have to go basically to NJDEP for approval, as well as to RVSA for approval. So.
And we have to sign, the township has to sign that, so
we
until
have
that's
to sign it.
resolved.
So TWA means Treatment Works Approval, that ultimately is a permit or an acceptance of what the proposed design is.
Okay. Mr. Keenan, do you want to go over anything, and then we'll open up to the board?
Can I ask Mr. Disco a question about that? So I just want to make sure I understand the numbers here and the way the math works. Right now, you have the old Saks building, which in theory, contributes X gallons of flow a day. And the new, so if I understand it correctly, the new development is also calculated to produce Y gallons of flow, but overall it's Y minus X. They get a credit for the existing.
Yes.
But that said, with the existing X credit, we're already exceeding our flow. So really what we're going to now exceed our flow by is the full load of whatever the new development brings in, because while they may get the credit, on the actual flow, we're already taking advantage of that credit. It's as if that existing Saks is already contributing flow, which it hasn't in 20+ years. Okay.
But we've also, just so you know, the governing body has approved and we bought more flow rates.
Okay.
I forget how much
We bought 100,000 gallons
100,000
per
gallons.
day, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're
Working towards it.
working toward everything.
In addition, I just want to point out, the applicant is replacing, as Ben said, the applicant is replacing the sanitary sewer throughout the site. This is not a sanitary sewer that begins at their site. It actually goes beyond the site to other Springfield areas. So we do derive a benefit in that they are replacing an existing sanitary sewer that may be 60, 70, 80 years old, that may be a leaking sanitary sewer with a brand-new sewer. So there will be some inherent benefit on the replacement of that sewer.
Perfect. Keenan, Mr. Hughes, do you want to give a quick overview, then I want
Yeah,
the board to
just
ask
very
questions.
briefly. I mean, it was a very thorough presentation by Ben, and I think he proactively addressed a couple of comments in our letter. The only other topic that I would raise and just ask you to address is number 8 in my review letter, which is green infrastructure, and it's something it's strongly encouraged in the plan. It's not required. Of course, I think everyone realizes the drastic reduction in impervious coverage on the site and all of the substantial landscaping that's going to occur. But I was just wondering, from an engineering standpoint, if you could just provide the board with the benefit of, what consideration, if any, was given to green infrastructure within the site.
Yeah, certainly. So the highlighting point certainly is the introduction of all the additional green space as you had highlighted. One area that was very important to us, certainly in light of also the state and the regulated watercourse of Van Winkle's Brook, is how can we improve that riparian corridor of that stream by restabilizing those banks, adding green space in that area that serves not only this property but downstream and upstream of the Van Winkle's Brook. Couple additional things. So we added a lot of landscaping, but one thing we did that from a non-structural perspective is introducing a rain garden. So instead of having, and that just to describe it on Exhibit A2, it's located at the western portion of the building. You'll see some expansive landscape areas in here. Designing it as a rain garden allowed pavement runoff to go through a curb break and actually go into this garden that will serve as irrigation and a water source for those plantings in lieu of conveying it structurally through storm pipes, storm structures. We're allowing that to naturally work into that area. It's an added amenity. I think there's going to be some visual aesthetic to it as well with the plantings that are provided there. And another additional thing, in kind of speaking with the developer, Scott, from Garden Homes, is they would be looking, and they've been doing this on several of their other developments, introducing electrical car charging stations. So for this particular site, potentially looking at the ability to add 2 electrical car charging stations on the exterior of the site. That would be, a feature for an amenity or someone visiting the site that has a electrical type vehicle.
Did you use anything further?
Nothing else. I mean, I would just say with respect to the transition to the residential area was something we've always been very focused on with this plan, and the landscape buffer, the screening, I agree with Mike and with Ben. I mean, this is what we envisioned.
This is the
part of the
significant work.
That's right. That's right. It's compliant, and it may even be above and beyond. It's going to be a really nice visual screen to the properties to the south.
Okay. So with that, I want to open up to the board to ask questions of their engineer and also our professionals. So, Mr. Brendel.
The middle space in the apartment.
Can you speak into the mic?
Yeah. Sorry. The middle space of the apartment building, that's just green space?
The architect will actually have some further advanced renderings of that space, but it's intended to have a pool, some hardscape areas as well that serve as an amenity to the residents.
And I know we talked about wastewater, but what about the other way? You've done studies of flow rates and everything for drinking water. There's enough.
Yeah, we've done some preliminary flow tests as part of the domestic and fire services through the site. Certainly, we have to obtain approvals from New Jersey American Water for those services and obtain a state permit.
Okay.
I may or may not have a question, but Keenan and Mike, the witness talked about fire truck access. Did we hear from the fire department?
Yes.
And they're fine with it?
They gave us a letter. I don't know if it was distributed to the board. It was about 10 bullet points. That's why I asked if they're willing to acquiesce to any changes. The circulation does work. It's very tight. And that was one of the comments generated, was to have the boulevard curbing be more mountable, because that's going to be the primary entrance for emergency vehicles other than perhaps Lot 34 Drive.
Did you review this?
Yep.
Did you agree to everything in this? The
We don't have any problem.
We don't have
with
a
any
problem.
of the comments
The fire
from
letter.
the
Okay, so just
fire.
make a condition of approval if they agree.
Then I have no questions. Thank you.
Thanks.
Ms. Kessler? I don't have any questions. Mr. Barnett?
I think in 15 years of doing this, that was the best presentation I've seen. Thorough, thank you. I don't have any questions.
No, I would have answered all questions.
So,
I have questions on the units,
what the design in the units are, that'll be the architect.
Architect.
Is that-
and I agree. Excellent witness.
Thanks.
Yeah, she's still my question.
Yeah, we have
Okay. So if you could stay here, because later when we open up the public, they'll have questions, and we may have some follow-up questions, so if you
He's
want
not going anywhere.
Okay. So if you want to call your next witness.
Okay. Dave?
Mr. Minot will swear you in. Mr. Minot, do you swear from the testimony you provide before the board this evening will be the truth?
I do.
Okay, can you state and spell your last name and provide your business address for the record?
Sure. My name is David Minnow, M-I-N-N-O. I'm a principal in Minnow and Wasco Architects and Planners. We're about an 85-person architecture and planning group based in Lambertville, New Jersey, and also Newark, New Jersey. And I've been doing this for about 40 years. I'm a licensed architect and a professional planner in the state of New Jersey. And very excited about this project.
Your license valid, because I know he'll ask, so I'll ask for it. All right, good. I think the board shouldn't have any problem accepting this as witness? No. Nope, okay, go ahead. He's going to swear you in, though, before you go.
We just did.
Oh, you did? Okay, go. Was that quick?
Before I get into the buildings, just as background, I think the township has done the right thing here. This is a fantastic redevelopment plan that's been written around this property, and it's going to create a beautiful, walkable community within Springfield. It's going to be mixed use, it's going to be mixed income, and it's really all of the best things that I think communities are looking for to really bolster their community. So one of the other great benefits, and you'll see it in this project, is we obviously need a lot of parking to support this project, but you're not going to see a lot of parking. The bulk of it is really hidden by the building, and the building's wrapped around the parking deck. So in that sense, it's a very good design. I wanted to go to the first drawing of ours. So much of the site-related work has been discussed by Ben, but I think it's important to emphasize that this is a lifestyle community. And one of the things we look at is when people come to this community, what do they see? And if you look on the drawing there, we have this beautiful, come in the main entrance, off the building, and we have a great motor court, almost like a European motor court. And the main entrance to the building, you're in the corner. If you look up on my drawing, I can't really see it on the screen, but the lighter colored area right by the circle, that whole area is amenity to the Leeson Center. And that looks through on the ground floor. You go back to the floor, that looks through to that center courtyard where we will have tremendous amenities out there. We're going to have some hardscape, we're going to have some green area, we're going to have a pool. But this is an area where people can come and congregate. It'll be an area where there'll be outdoor grilling. At night there may be fire pits out there, there's lounge chairs, and it really becomes a very active space. We want to show that off. The minute you walk in the building, you look right out and see that beyond. The retail is on the upper right-hand corner of the northwestern portion of the site, as was mentioned, and we're trying to tie that in with the existing retail that exists on Melbourne Avenue. So we're trying to create that synergy there, and hopefully we have a really nice wide sidewalk in that location, and hopefully we can do some cafe dining along that section of the street. So this really, and that really too acts as a traffic calmer in this particular area. We've taken care with the design of the townhomes to not, as the redevelopment plan states, not have any garage access or cars backing out of garages on Melbourne Avenue. And we've alley loaded the garages, so what that does is it concentrates the cars, puts them in garages in sort of out of sight type of area. So the front door area then becomes very clean and very nice, and doesn't emphasize the automobile like a lot of townhome communities do. While I'm here, I'd like to go through just some of the statistics on the buildings themselves. And first talking about the 223 units in the larger multifamily building in the center. This is a 4-story building. We have 119 one-bedrooms. We have 94 two-bedrooms and 10 three-bedrooms. Now, the 3-bedroom units are part of the affordable component. The way affordable housing works, for those of you that don't know, we need to provide, of the affordable units, the 41 units that are provided as affordable, we need to provide 20% one-bedrooms, 60% two-bedrooms, and 20% three-bedrooms. And that's how we get to those 10 three-bedrooms in this particular plan. So, and we were asked to do, I think 2 additional.
One extra 3-bedroom.
By the township committee, so we've taken that on. The retail space, I think, was mentioned, it's approximately 5,215 square feet. And the amenity space within the building, including the courtyard, is over 7,000 square feet of amenity space. Let's move on to the lower level plans. On the ground floor plan, what was amenity space and retail space now begins to become residential unit space above. If you take a look at the way the garage structure works, we've really wrapped that garage on 3 sides, and we've done a finished facade, which I'll show you in a minute, on the eastern side of the garage. And that's set back from Milburn Avenue, so that's really cut off from most view because of the existing retail building on the eastern side of our driveway. So we put it in a very discreet location. Our vehicular entry to the garage is right here. That's controlled for residents by a key fob. So they hit their key fob as they come down the street, and the garage door is a very fast operated garage door goes up. They go in, it's an automatic garage door on the way out. And that deck serves 320 parking spaces. And it's basically a hidden structure. You won't really see it as you drive by on Milburn Avenue or walk through the community. Next slide. So we've shown you the second and third floor. The main difference on the fourth floor plan is the redevelopment plan has specified that they didn't want constant height of the building along Milburn Avenue in particular. So we varied the height, and you can see some light brown areas along the frontage on the plan on Milburn Avenue where we've dropped the height of the building. One section is near our entryway at the boulevard, and another section is over the retail area. And then in the back corner, in the southwest corner of the building, we've also dropped that too to be consistent all the way around the building. So we've got, you'll see when I show you the renderings, we've got a beautiful up and down type of fascia line, which I think really adds a richness to the building. It looks like they've been built in pieces rather than monolithically. Next slide. So this is the roof plan. This shows the top level of the garage over there, but it also shows the roof. But down the center of the roof, you see some sort of white strips. Those are the areas that we're going to locate the air conditioning for the units. They're in the center of right over the corridor line of the building below to reduce vibration. But being in the center of the roof, they also reduce visibility from anybody who's on the street level or our neighbors close by. So we have a parapet on our building, which I'll show you, which is a little above the roof line. But also, because those air conditioning units are set back, they won't be visible to people in the area. Next slide. So now we get to show you some pretty pictures. This is the view looking from Milburn Avenue, looking to the southeast. And this shows our main boulevard and entry with the signage on the right-hand side.
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. When you're giving some testimony, can you talk about the materials you're going to be using? Okay.
In fact, I have a material board.
Perfect.
I'll talk about it a little bit here. We do have a variety of materials. We're using a combination of brick. We have a concrete siding material. We have some impregnated wood material. And a lot of beautiful glass within the building itself. And in some cases, we have some metal panel on the building and also some overhangs and entry structures that are made out of metal.
But part of the agreement is also the planner and the engineer, they have to prove all materials. We know that, right?
Yeah, we're going to do that.
No.
We listed them on the
I don't want to
elevation, and we showed you where they are in the elevation. But I'm also at the panel here with the actual materials, which will make part of the render.
I just want people to realize that.
This is also the corner where the proposed traffic light is, even though it's not shown in the rendering.
It's not shown in the rendering. So one of the things I wanted to show here was the varied roof height at this corner. The building is 3 stories, and then as you go a little further down the block, it's 4, and then as you see over the retail area, in the distance on the far left, we drop down again to 3 stories. Next slide. This is a view looking the other direction. So we're looking to the west on Milburn Avenue at Baltusrol, or I'm sorry, Glenwood Drive. And you can see on the very left of that drawing, there's the existing off-site retail that's on Milburn Avenue. And you see our retail space out there. We're showing some cafe dining at the street level. And you see the part of the building has been dropped along the street frontage to 3 stories over the retail. Next slide. This is going a little further west on Milburn Avenue. And what we're showing here are the townhome facades. Remember, these don't have any garage doors on this side. We have beautiful entry doors on this side and courtyards, little landscaped areas in front of the building to create some resident space, and then the public space, obviously, is the sidewalk. There's street trees in this location. And we have a similar but slightly different palette of materials used in a slightly different way. A little bit more divided light feel to the residential units, but we've done what I think is a sort of easy contemporary type of look. It's a transitional look, which we think people are looking for today. People are really educated these days in terms of design. They visit best boutique hotels all over the world. They watch design shows, and we feel like they're looking for an aesthetic that's comfortable in today, but also has a lasting value to it. Next slide. This is internal to the site. So this view would be taken, if you look at the site plan here, if you're at this point looking down into the green of the townhomes. So you're seeing one line of townhomes on the left side of the drawing, and then the townhomes here at the end with the green in the foreground. On the very right-hand corner, you're seeing the corner of the 4-story residential building to your right in this drawing. So you're seeing how the comfortable fit between the townhome architecture and the multifamily architecture. And even internal to the project, you really, other than some surface parking here in the middle, which some of this will be devoted to visitor parking, you're not really overwhelmed by the automobile like you are in most residential communities. Next slide. So I wanted to show people, I know there was some interest in some of the professional review letters of the materials for the garage facade. And we've shown a little bit of an enlarged drawing. This is a facade that probably no one will see at this angle. It's taken from the retail property next door, looking at the side elevation. But we wanted to be clear about what we're doing. We're using actual grates that look like windows, but they're open air. We're trying to get the ventilation value out of the open air nature of the garage. They're scaled to look like windows and have mullion designs that look like windows. So it has that residential scale to it. And then we're using a couple of different tones of concrete on the main panels of the building. So just to be a little more clear, from this point here,
Is the microphone?
to this point here,
Mr. Minnow, can you please, Mr.
this is
Minnow?
actually the
Mr. Minnow?
loading-
Mr. Minnow? Can you grab a microphone so we can get
You over there?
This is actually the loading area here to the right, that loading alley that goes behind the retail back to the move-in area and trash collection area. And then this is the main garage door entry into the garage. Sorry, I can't point at that screen. That generally ends my direct. I have some answers to some of the questions that both professionals have asked. Maybe if I could, I'd turn to the Phillips Price memo dated September 24th. And one of the things, if you look at comment 1 on the second page,
I'm going to interrupt you one more time. Do you mind trying to move that mic closer? Because people at home watch the live streaming, and they won't be able to hear you.
okay. Turning to comment 1 on page 2 of this memo. We talked about it in the redevelopment plan, a maximum of a 4-foot high parapet. We showed on our drawings 5 feet, so we're going to modify that back down to 4 feet. And I just want to verify that our building height for the taller multifamily buildings is compliant at a height of 48 feet. And we're well below, just as a point of interest, we're well below the redevelopment plan height ordinance for townhomes. I believe the ordinance has a permitted height of 42 feet, and I think we're approximately 33 feet 6 inches. And that's one of the benefits to going to a more of a flat roof or contemporary roof townhome product, as we reduce the height. In terms of, there was a question about item number 2 on the memo about the step back for the roof terrace. And we confirmed that we will make that 15 feet. We will be compliant with that. We were slightly less than the 15 feet. We have adjusted that, and that will be compliant. The architectural plan, item number 3, the architectural plan notes that a 3.5-foot parapet will also be utilized as safety barriers for the roof terrace. Those, the safety barriers that we're going to use in response to this question, we're going to set those back 5 feet from the building edges to be in compliance with the redevelopment plan. So from the edge of the roof, we're going to come back into the roof with our safety rails. Item number 4 addresses balconies, I believe. On the we have balconies shown on the Milburn Avenue side. They're not sitting balconies. What they're called, what we would call a Romeo and Juliet balcony, which is a balconette. And what that means is somebody can open their French door and stand at the balcony railing, but there's no area to step out onto a balcony. So it's just a way to take advantage of light and air. And part of the reason we do it that way is that we don't want sitting balconies on a public street because sometimes there's a broken chair or a dead plant or a towel. And we just want to keep those facades, in particular along Milburn Avenue, very clean. So none of our balconies would have a depth of greater than 2 feet. Most of it's about 6 or 8 inches beyond the building face. So we're compliant with that dimension.
I think the next architectural one, Dave, is number 7, just to confirm compliance on the pool.
Yes, we'll be compliant regarding the township ordinance on the pool, construction and maintenance and sanitation. We'll just confirm that. That was a question.
And I think that's everything on Tina's.
Yes, and then I had a couple of things on Mr. Disco's letter.
Number 10, I just want you to agree on the record that no properties outside the redevelopment should be able to access that lot 34.
Oh,
the road.
that's a general stipulation. We have no problem with that at all.
And also Title 39 on the street for the police and whatever.
That's fine as well.
Right.
Right.
Again, now I'm referring to M. Disco Associates memo dated September 23rd, and I already addressed number 6 at the bottom of page 2, and that was in McKinnon's memo as well. We talked about number 8, which is related to the garage elevation, which is on the screen, and we've addressed that. We're not intending to do a green wall system in this case, but we're intending to do the facade that we're presenting today, which has the residential scale look. And we're not showing any sloping floors of the garage on the exterior. You don't see a angled spindle panel there for the garage. Number 9 is not a requirement. It's a suggestion. This is in the townhome area that's talking about paired doors needing a pillar in between 2 doors. Many of our garage doors are a single, double garage door. that was a suggestion in the redevelopment plan, not a requirement. One other thing, this is sort of a random one. This is comment number 18. It relates to hairpin striping. I don't think it's a great idea in a parking garage to do that. I've never done a garage with hairpin striping. We always do single striping. But we're willing to do that if that's the township standard. That we'll comply if necessary. I think that's it.
Do you want to go over the material before we open it up
Yes.
to
Yes.
our professionals on the board?
Can you guys get the material board so we can have it marked? And while Dave is getting the material board, just in terms of the PowerPoint being marked as an exhibit, since there was reference, if we could have it collectively marked as an exhibit, maybe as A3.
Is this just the material board?
No, what was on the,
With these, the color plans that were showed, that Mr. Winna went through, were those part of the application package?
no, the color.
Not the color. It was-
So they were the same plans, but just colored versions?
Right.
So we're going to mark those collectively as a, what do you have, the A3?
3.
And we'll leave a disc, a digital disc of those with you.
So the architectural plans collectively are A3.
And then
And then the A4 will be the notice board?
A4 is the board.
Mike, you have a lot to collect tonight.
So this is A4?
Yes.
Okay. What was shown on the material board are the main materials within the building, and we've shown, and on the plans, when you look at our elevations, in the plan set, they have a couple of different brick colors, brick 1, brick 2, and we're showing a field of brick 1 and brick 2 here. We've got fiber cement panels, 3 different colors used, actually 4 different colors used. One, there's 5 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's various colors of fiber cement board used throughout the project. Many people know this material in residential settings as hardy board. That's a trade name. But what it is, it's a painted concrete material. This is concrete through and through. It's a very safe material, very long lasting. But we're using it mostly as larger sheets with reveal lines. And what that means is we have a very nice joint between panels rather than a batten panel over the joints. So we're doing a more refined look of this hardy panel. And it gives us the ability to vary color throughout the building. Metal panel, we're showing 2 different colors, a gray and a brown panel, and these are used as accents throughout the building. We have precast accent panels particularly along the streetscape in low areas like water tables. We've got 2 different colors of precast concrete. And then the balconette and garage grills and windows, we're talking about a silver tinted metal window. The last one is the wood panel. This is a composite wood panel. I think you saw some of this on the multifamily building on Milburn Avenue, and also on the townhomes. We've used it as accents. So these are the basic palette of materials that we'll be using throughout the building.
Okay. Anything further?
Nope.
Keenan and Mike? Mike, you want to go first? Well, Keenan, you go first.
Well,
since it's your,
Just while we're on materials, the one, I had a question about the material above the loading space for move in, move out activity. What is that material, the vertical paneling system there?
Yep. Dave, use the microphone.
Now that's the composite wood panel.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Composite wood panel.
Got it, okay.
Keenan, do you want to take questions?
But otherwise, all of my comments in the letter have been addressed through the architectural testimony. I will say, just in general, I'm It's a pleasure that we're reviewing architectural plans that are consistent with the plans that we've been seeing for many, many months at this point. So there hasn't been any change in materials or even the rendered views that we have in the redevelopment plan are essentially the same ones they're presenting tonight. So that's all positive. And other than that, I don't have any open items on the architecture.
Mr. Disco, before I open up to the board?
Are we retaining that materials board?
Yes.
It's yours
Yeah.
now.
You have to-
You're retaining it.
You are.
Has it been identified as A4?
Yes,
Yes,
it's marked as
A4.
A4.
Just going back to the hairpin, and first of all, I don't care about the hairpin, we don't have really a plan of the parking garage other than these overall views, so the sizes of the parking spaces in the garage are,
9 by 18.
okay.
Is that what you want?
Handicaps are larger.
Is that what you want, or should it be 10 by 20? Like, but,
Well,
I mean, then you
it's
lose
gonna
space.
result in a loss.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good.
9 by 18 is fairly standard.
Yeah.
That's what you see most of the time. So, again, we do have a standard of hairpin. Everybody asks on every project, if you don't have it, do you have hairpin spray? All of the surface parking is hairpin spray.
So is that what it should be? Is that what you think it should be?
On a parking garage, first of all, the question is, why do we have hairpin striping?
Yeah.
It was developed way before me, so I don't know, but presumably it gives a better visual for people to try to stay within their part of the hairpin, so you have that central portion that's no man's land. I don't really personally have a feeling if the applicant doesn't really want it in the parking garage.
I tell you, can I just tell you why we didn't think it was necessary in the garage? Because they're going to be assigned spaces for the owners.
Residents
So everyone's going to know where they're parking. It's not like, when you pull into a place.
Yeah.
So we were doing hairpin on all the surface. We weren't proposing to do hairpin in the garage. I've never done a garage with
Mike,
hairpin either.
we would, the board would defer to you what's appropriate.
They're certainly not
Don't need it.
going to have the element of sun acting on it as well, so they'll probably last longer. It's a different material that the garage floor is and the pavement.
Do you think it should?
I have no problem with the not having the hairpin in the garage, is what I'm trying to say.
Would we have to grant a variance for that?
No, it's a design standard. Is it a design waiver or just,
Well, it's in our ordinance.
it's in our ordinance, is it a waiver or?
That we require hairpin striping, but would that require a variance?
Yeah, it's
It'd probably be a waiver.
in the design standard.
What?
I mean, we have a section in the redevelopment plan which supersedes, so
Oh, yeah.
it's silent on it in the terms of.
And we've already determined that the redevelopment plan supersedes our ordinances. Glenn's already made that determination.
Want to be conservative and state a waiver, fine, but I don't know.
All right, we'll let
Let
council,
the attorneys figure that
we'll
out.
let council figure that
The
out.
other, lastly, to conclude on this, the other reason we don't think we need them is we don't believe we're gonna have columns in the garage. It's a precast garage with a free span from one side to the other, so it's not a typical cast-in-place garage that you might find in town with a lot of column locations.
That's fine. That's fine. All right, let me open up to the board. Marissa, we'll go this side.
Okay. So I'm looking on, I guess this is A2.
This would be for the witnesses or our professionals.
Right. I guess, I'm just looking at the unit mix. Is that an appropriate question to ask? Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I just have a question. It says, one bedroom affordable, then one bedroom D. What does that stand for?
What was it?
It says
One bedroom D.
One bedroom D.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Den.
With the den.
Oh, with the den, okay. And then there's, so the 2 bedrooms, and then I see that the 3-bedroom units, they're only affordable units, is there?
That's correct. The 10
Why-
three-bedroom units in the project are all affordable.
No, but is there a reason why why there's no 3-bedroom units that are for a general population? I guess?
For market rate. Yeah, I mean, in general, we believe our market is two components. We see the empty nester market, people who are maybe selling a house in Springfield who want to keep a rental community property here. The other market that we see is a young professional, generally childless, who move in and at the time that they want to start a family generally would find other types of housing which isn't served by elevator.
Okay.
So-
We do have the 3-bedroom offering
Right.
in the town.
Right, that was the other.
So that, part of the agreement, part of the discussion was that the affordable housing would be located in the main
No,
building,
that-
and then
no, that-
townhouses would not have that.
We just wanted to.
I just was curious why there was no 3-bedroom option for market. Thank you.
So,
My question was back to the townhouses. I was under the assumption in the beginning they were to be purchased, not for rental.
Their plan right now is rental.
But weren't they,
Way back in the beginning.
Way back in the beginning when we started talking to them, yes.
right, when did that change?
That was a different,
Different architects and everything else together.
It was a different contract, it was a
That was a
different owner.
question that I asked.
it was a different property owner.
That's it. You've answered all my questions.
David?
I don't have any questions.
I just had one. We talked about the roof plan. Satellite dishes, stuff like that. How are you going to make sure that, are you doing one dish for the entire development that could connect in? Because I would,
Yeah.
So it'll be
We
in the
wouldn't
bylaws.
we wouldn't allow individual units to have that, and that would be addressed in the leases.
or the bylaws or something?
Yeah.
Okay. I think maybe the bylaws or something would be reviewed by the township attorney or developer's agreement or something like that.
If there were particular concerns about restrictions for aesthetic purposes, I have no problem working with the township attorney or the board attorney, with Keenan, on
Yeah, we just don't want to see-
ensuring that the redevelopment plan the intent of the redevelopment plan remains consistent.
Okay. Sharon?
I have nothing, thank you.
Board never not that talkative. Okay, so seeing this, can I, Jay, the next witness is going to be our traffic expert. How long do you anticipate your, because I'm trying to see whether we take a break now for 5 minutes?
About 10 minutes.
Oh, that's it? Okay. Let's do the traffic, and then we'll go to a break before public.
Traffic and weather together?
Traffic and weather together. So,
We're going to swear you in.
yeah, so again, for the board and the public, again, the planning board, instead of using the applicant's traffic engineer, we decided to hire our own on behalf of the applicant, using the applicant's money to be able to make sure that we're comfortable with our traffic engineer and we're getting the right testimony, since traffic was a very important part of this.
Mr. Chairman, do you swear from the testimony provided before the board this evening will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Can you please state and spell your name and give us your business address for the record?
Yes, Jay Troutman, Troutman, McDonough and Ray Associates, 105 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey.
Now, I guess since the board hired you, we trust the fact that, but you're a professional engineer in good standing in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, a licensed professional engineer, specializing in traffic engineering, practicing for 32 years now, principal of my firm.
We've hired.
The township has hired you, and you have been qualified as an expert in traffic engineering before many boards around the state?
Yes, I have.
Including this board as well. So I don't think I have a problem with this. Anyone have an issue? No.
All right, the board accepts your qualification.
Thank you.
Yeah. So also, for the record, we reached out to the Township of Millburn at the same time, and we gave them a list of names, and they as well picked McDonough and Ray. So this was a combined effort with Millburn and us to do a traffic study that affects both municipalities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would commend the township for doing the traffic work up front before they put zoning in place. A lot of times you end up with zoning and then you're looking at traffic at the site plan phase. The township chose to get a general framework of how the traffic was going to be handled on this property up front before they rezoned this property. And what that involved was retaining our firm to do a traffic impact study that included detailed traffic volume data collection and then impact analysis for the 270 residential units you just heard about, as well as the retail space. Included in that data collection was a full-day collection along Millburn Avenue at the Baltusrol Way location where the main site access will be, and the purpose of that was to determine if there's enough traffic to warrant a traffic signal. When that data was analyzed, in fact, traffic signal warrants are satisfied at that location, and based on the intersection level of service capacity analysis work that we did with that data, we would recommend a traffic signal at the time of full occupancy for the site. As a trigger, we would recommend that certificates of occupancy for the last 27 units or the last 10% of the units on the site not be granted until that traffic signal is operational. That's the main intersection. We also evaluated the other driveway that's proposed near Glenwood. That'll be a stop-controlled driveway, and that driveway operates satisfactorily with just the stop traffic control. We would recommend, in evaluating the Morris Avenue connection into the site, my interpretation of that is that it holds a permit of some kind for a department store. I believe that for sure this proposed development is much less intense in terms of traffic than, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute, much less intense than that current permit that would be assumed there. It appears that that is an unrestricted permit, meaning all turning movements could take place at that location. So we would recommend that that be a full movement driveway. It's going to be subject to NJDOT review and approval, but the applicant may be able to obtain a letter of no interest from NJDOT based on whatever current permit they have for that location for a retail use. And the reason for that.
Can you explain that a little bit more in English for the board?
Yeah, like full movement and things like that, just for my
good point, sir.
Everybody
Yes.
else, just
No, that's a good
bring
point.
it down a little bit for us. Thanks.
So right now, if you were to exit that connection to Morris, there's nothing restricting you from turning left or right out of there, and there's also nothing restricting you from turning left in or right in. So all possible movements. That's what full movement means. Versus if I were to say right in, right out, that means you could only turn right in, right out. You couldn't do any lefts. So we were recommending the full movement because it gains access to Morris Avenue heading to the southeast without routing everybody around Short Hills and down through the traffic light where Short Hills accesses Morris. I think it helps in terms of impacts to Milburn Avenue. It would be used by residents. It's a resident-only access, so they would be familiar with when and when not to navigate that and attempt that left turn. I think it would be self-regulating in that sense. They could always choose to go out Milburn Avenue, but there would probably be many times throughout the day where that left turn would be okay, or on weekends, or during slow times. So it would just allow more flexibility and less impact to Milburn Avenue. I should have mentioned this up front, but the site traffic impact of the uses you heard about tonight are significantly less intense than the pre-existing department store impact or other retail impacts that we've heard about in the past for this property.
Specifically a Stop and Shop.
I know a supermarket was considered.
Don't say that word.
I took a look at some of the turning movements that would happen with a supermarket. You'd be talking about 200 peak hour left turns trying to get in from Milburn Avenue along that nice little section you have there with parking and a single lane in each direction. Definitely would need a traffic light that was working pretty hard to handle that type of movement. Whereas with this type of intensity, you're having a much less significant traffic signal design, one that incorporates much better into that corridor as a shopping and parking corridor, and as you saw from the presentation, just much more compatible with what's out there right now. And then that less intense traffic translates into less intense traffic as you head east to that critical Milburn Avenue Short Hills Road intersection that we've all waited at. You're talking about probably just one additional trip per minute at that location versus, again, some kind of retail use or supermarket that would draw all kinds of people trying to get through that. So again, this is the right solution from a traffic standpoint. for this property. I think we would want to preserve the way the property's been historically accessed. We don't want to upset the apple cart there, so we basically analyzed it as it's traditionally been accessed and would continue to recommend that that pattern be retained. That does go to one issue that we saw in some of the comments. I know the police department took a close look at this site, and they had some very excellent comments and insights on traffic. They obviously understand the traffic very well in this area. One of the recommendations was Baltusrol Avenue as it comes up from Morris and comes to this property. That is not a functioning access to the property now, and I would recommend that it remain that way, to not be an access to the property. All of the access points that were presented tonight are perfectly capable of accommodating the site-generated traffic. And I discussed the extension from the site out to Morris Avenue as well, with the left turn exiting movements. I could go through all of these comments. I know some of them were on the plans, and those were the main two that I wanted to testify about.
Okay. Do you have anything? Nothing?
I don't
You're
think-
sad.
I think we're okay. And there is a valid 2008 DOT permit that was in fact issued for the Stop and Shop.
Okay, and that would be condition of approval, the same thing to work through that.
That's right.
Okay. Mr. Disco, Mr. Juicy, anything for our witness?
Nothing to add from my perspective.
All right, from the board's perspective, Mr. Brendel?
Yep. Maybe I misheard you. I just want to go back to the last sentence you just said. Baltusrol Ave, you recommend not being an access point, did you say?
Yeah, now there's a Baltusrol Avenue and there's a Baltusrol Way. There's two different, right? Baltusrol Avenue in Springfield coming up from Morris, we recommended that that not be an access to the project.
So maybe I misunderstood from earlier.
Can
Would you have an exhibit that
right
shows the
there.
neighboring streets in Milburn as well? Like, the one that shows,
Avenue, got it.
shows Glenside?
Yeah, so
That's the corridor there. Got it, okay.
Okay.
Got it.
Right, so this is not.
So the plan is, Mr. Brendel, is that would be, a fence would be along
Yep.
that property line. No cars would go in and out.
Got it, yeah, right, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of odd how.
And then the yellow, the access road we are talking about,
Yes.
that's the one you recommend full motion, I think you said? Full movement, sorry, not a traffic expert.
Wait 1 second. Mr. Trauma, can you speak into the microphone too?
So this is a good exhibit. It shows all the streets. My thing's dead, but Baltusrol Way in Milburn. Oh, thank you.
Mr. Trauma, you're using A1, correct, for the record?
Exhibit A1, is that what? Yeah, A1. So Baltusrol Way in Milburn comes, and that would be the four-way traffic signal. And then Glenwood comes out from Milburn here, and this would be the stop-controlled driveway allowing all turning movements. And then the third